Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our 2026-27 Premium Updates Briefing Looped In webinar. My name is Kristen Harrigan, and I'm from icare's Mobile Engagement Team, and I'm coming to you today from the Central Coast of New South Wales. I'm on Darkinjung country and would like to pay my respects to the elders, people and ancestors of this country where I'm based. I'd also like to pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we all work today and any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people participating in this webinar. Now, before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping. So to minimise disruptions, the participants' microphones and cameras have been turned off and the chat box has been closed. This webinar will be recorded and a link to the recording sent to attendees in approximately 2 weeks. And the slide pack will also be made available to the registered attendees for today. For any brokers who may be in attendance, details of the CPD points will be shared at the very end of the session. So I will now hand over to Emma Minards, Head of Workers' Compensation Productive Pricing, and Karis Leo, Pricing Specialist. Thank you, Emma and Karis.
Thanks, Kristen, and thanks everyone for being here today and taking the time to attend the briefing. As Kristen said, the session is recorded, and today we're coming to you with a session that forms part of a series of priority briefings scheduled ahead of broader market communication, which will happen later next week, and that will be timed to support renewal documentations going out to customers. Within the presentation as well, we do touch on some operational guides. We do have some experts within this group, so we'll satisfy some of that initial curiosity, but the main support will come from your icare representatives in the coming days. So that brings me to my first slide. And those of you who have been following the reforms, which is probably everyone, you may recall there were 2 amendment bills introduced last year, which are now both acts. And the second piece of legislation, the Reform and Modernisation Act, includes a section that relates to premium rate freeze. This requires the nominal insurer to maintain the target premium rate levels for 26-27 and 27-28 premium filing years. And what this means is we need to collect the current target collection rate of 1.99. That needs to be maintained, and this is how much we collect at a scheme level. The legislation doesn't prescribe how we get there, so our premium filing needs to address how we maintain that rate, which I'll talk to in a few moments on the next slide. And lastly, the key subsection of the legislation is that the rate freeze does not prevent a variation in premium. So premiums will still be calculated in accordance with our premium setting methodology. So that means that your premium could still change due to an increase in wages, business activity change, individual claims experience for the larger employers, and any incentive eligibility. It's important to note as well, just my final point, that whilst the rate freeze in the legislation is for 2 policy periods, the information we discussed today is just for the 26-27 filing, and 27-28 will still form part of next year's annual filing cycle process. So moving on to the detail of what that 1.99 actually means. We have already announced high level on our website that WIC rates will not change. So the rates that were published for 25-26 will remain unchanged, and they will be available on icare's website. Obviously the 25-26 are already there, but they'll be updated for 26-27. Every WIC in that WIC system will remain with the same rate. For small employers, WIC rates are the primary influence of their premium payable. So this will not increase for the 26-27 period. And then we have the smallest policyholders in the scheme that are just paying a minimum premium charge, and that will not see an increase. It will remain at $240. There's no change to any performance measures or adjustment factors, so that also includes LPR and LPR plus. All factors and performance measures will stay the same for 26-27. So a lot of things not changing to ensure that we comply with the legislation and achieve that target collection rate. A small movement that we do have will be to our premium capping. To help keep premium rates stable for experience-rated employers, we're reducing the premium increase cap from 30% to 25%. The premium capping prevents an employer's premium rate impacted by claims performance rising more than 25% from their previous year's premium rate. Just as a sub-point, the flooring or decrease cap, as it's referred to sometimes, that will stay the same at 30%. And this is so to not adversely impact employers that are performing well. And then a couple of premium model enhancements. I'm just going to take LPR Plus first because it's a little simpler. So we did introduce LPR Plus in 2023, our newest product to the burner style model, and it was created without a maximum premium. So this year we are introducing the maximum premium limit of 5.985 times APP, which seems very specific, but it does align to the maximum premium limit for all other models and products in the scheme. And that is aligning and also providing that certainty for LPR Plus participants. And then the final point on this slide is employer claims excess, which has been a hot topic for many across the industry, introduced in the regulations, still in draft. But what we are trying to do in response to that is where employers have claims experience used to calculate premium, the employer paid excess amount will be removed from the cost of claim when we're calculating that premium. We're all awaiting the finalisation of the regulations, so the full certainty and the parameters of excess provisions will need to be managed when we know for sure what's happening there. But those that understand the conventional premium model will understand that the costs aligning to 26-27 will actually not impact premiums until 27-28 when it falls into the claim history, and therefore we've got some time to understand the regulations and plan for how that will be implemented. And then naturally reducing the cost of a claim in response to the employer paid excess will also reduce the total cost used in any LPR or LPR Plus calculations. And my very final point on that, which isn't directly relating to how employers are charged claims excess, but it seems to be an ongoing concern. So I have looked for some information from our SMEs on the reform project, and it's around how those payments will occur. So when an employer is paying their injured worker and being reimbursed by the CSP, the periods of compensable wage loss, an employer will still need to submit their wage reimbursement schedule regardless of if the period claimed is impacted by excess or not. It applies to both employers on a formal wage rem and also those where they're not. And if a claim for weekly payments transacted by the CSP includes both excess and a period where actual monies are released, the employer will receive a remittance advice and a letter to detail the payments, including the excess period. And then where a CSP is directly paying the injured worker for any period of weekly payments impacted by excess, the worker will receive the appropriate amount for that period without any deductions made, and icare will then issue an invoice to the employer for the recovery of the excess amount. So I'm just now moving on to a couple of final changes that we've made to our WIC structural change. So we have a system of WICs. They'll be available as well in the coming days with the updated version for 26-27. But we have two minor changes, noting again that rates do not change. This is just purely a code structural change within the WIC system. The first one's cleaning services. Fairly minor, and it is the third in a 3-year transition. We've historically had 2 rates for cleaning services, one for government, one for non-government, and this is the final year in us trying to bring those closer together to just have a single WIC. We will keep the rate and roll that over from the rate used last year and retire the one ending in 20 and the cleaning WIC ending in 10 will just simply be renamed cleaning services. And then a structural change with more significance for some larger employers in the scheme. we are making a change to corporate head office this year. icare will retire the existing corporate head office week, which is the 785410, and we're creating 2 new classifications. We're doing this to draw a clear distinction between where it's used for chief executive services and where it's used for a true national head office. So we're attempting to remove that ambiguity and enhance the accuracy of application, and there's an expectation that applying for it will be consistent as well. We have also simplified the provisions for supporting information from employers. And again, just finally to note that there's no change in the rate. And I think this is significant for some on the call. So I'm going to pass to Karis now, and she's going to take us through a couple of slides to explain the corporate head office change in a bit more detail.
Thanks, Anne. So this slide, we're going to go through the differences between the 2 new wigs has been created for Chief Executive Services and National Head Office. So Chief Executive Services replaces the old Corporate Head Office wig, which is 785410. Therefore, all the existing customers with Corporate Head Office will default to 785411. So what has changed from 10 to 11? So it has very similar definition and almost identical criteria, but just the wording of the description has been changed. So the definition and criteria used exist in Note 7 of the WIC system, which has been removed. And the definition has been replaced by the WIC description under the WIC name. And the criteria is now added to the wages definition menu via Chapter I. So we'll have details of the Chapter I on the next slide. And that's basically what's changed from 10 to 11. And what make 12 the national head office distinct from 11? So that's mainly for employers who has a sole national head office located in New South Wales in a building or entire floors physically separated from other workplaces of the employer or group. So that make it distinct from chief executive services. And the 2 general items apply for both of the new wigs. The first one is the capping eligibility. So for all the employees already having corporate head office, defaulting to chief executive services, or needing to change to national head office, are still eligible for capping. This is not considered as a wig change. And the second part is the predominancy of this function that needs to be outside of New South Wales. Otherwise, it is considered as incidental to the predominant business activity in New South Wales. So this slide covers the differences and changes. And the next slide, we're going to go through some operational guidelines. So operationally, we do require supporting information for both weeks. There will be supporting information forms available and will be distributed by our underwriting team. And for the information required for chief executive services is very similar to what used to required for the corporate head office. So it does need the national footprint of the employer. So that determines the predominancy is outside of New South Wales. It does require the senior executive staff roles. That's meeting the criteria now in the wages definition menu. And also it needs an organization chart for these roles. So what's different from 11 to 10 is now in this definition menu chapter I. On the snip here, we can see the C-suite roles is similar to what used to be in the criteria. And the further clarification is coming to, it used to have the immediate support for the C-suite, and now it's very clarified to just the EAs. And the other side, the difference is at renewal, employer has the choice to either providing the full supporting information of the wages to apply for renew the estimated wages, or just using the default set table based on the employer group wages to have that split apply for the total wages role. So the rank is when the employer wages size is equal or greater than 50 million, 5% of the total wages can be splitted and applied to chief executive services. And the wages size that's equal to or greater than 20 million to 50 million is having a 10% to be applied as a split. and the wage size under 20 million is having the 15%. So when the underwriter is not receiving the full year supporting information and they already have the corporate head office wage as a pre-existing and defaulting to the chief executive services, this table can apply at renew. But let's keep in mind, at actual wages declaration, the full supporting information is required to have this week maintained. Otherwise, this week will be removed for the policy period. And then go back to the national head office. What's the supporting information requirement? Is the location of the head office. It is the services description provided by head office, and also same as its chief executive services, it needs the national footprint to determine the predominancy is outside of New South Wales. So that's basically the operational guidelines. I know it's quite a lot of information, but feel free to reach out to the dedicated underwriter, icare rep, and to support you and to go through with the guideline and information required. So that's about everything for the change for corporate head office. Now I'll hand over back to Emma to go through the other changes for 26-27.
Thanks, Karis. So we have a few small items here. The wage price index we communicate each year. So the wage inflation will apply to renewals for 26-27 at 3.9%. The impact this has is some small employers that sit close to the cusp of becoming experience rated will move into that model based on their wage, that small bit of wage growth. As standard practice, our underwriting teams send a letter to explain what will happen and how that calculation changes. So that will be caught as common practice. And then the final 2 points there are just the update of the dust diseases rates are now available, and we've updated our mine safety levy. So they're just a few of the levies that are included in the final premium payable. And the next 3 slides that we have are just a few basic examples, which may be a bit 101 for some on the call, but just to explain or reiterate that the premium rate freeze does not prevent a change in premium for an employer necessarily. Example A is just really the wage price index only is the movement. So you can see that small increase in wages. The week rate is staying exactly the same for 26-27, and there's a small increase there in the APP and in the final premium payable. The second example is showing a more severe increase in wages, which could be due to acquisition or business growth. So the employers declared 250,000 last year and now $1 million in 26-27. We can see there that the week rate still stays the same, but their premium will increase as a result of that wage increase due to their business growth. And then the final one is the experience rated employer example. Again, we've taken quite a basic approach to that and kept the wages completely static. Notwithstanding, there would be wage price index, but for the purpose of demonstration, the wages stay the same, the week stays the same, the APP stays the same, but what has changed is in 25-26, there were no claims in history, and moving into 26-27, there are claims. So the amount the premium was reduced by has changed. There's a smaller experience premium reduction, and the employer will see an increase in their final premium payable. These can be used as collateral for communication if required. Kristen's mentioned the pack will be available, so please feel free to use those as needed. And then a few next steps. So I do have something else to talk about after premium filing, but just some next steps on premium filing. So this week is our priority engagements. We have a couple more to continue with this week. We then do our system upload with all the renewal information. Assuming that all goes to plan, we'll be starting to do wider communications next week, and renewal documentation will go out to employers. So Monday, Tuesday, we're expecting to finalise all those updates to the website, which means the typical documents will be available. Premium rates, wage manual, our week system, and we'll be updating our frequently asked questions on the website as well as a premium announcement similar to what you've heard today. Further to that, there'll be some tools and resources made available in the next week or two, including our premium calculator, and then the 30 June renewals will be received by all employers. You're welcome to have a copy of the pack as well after the session. We can pop some links in there to those documents that will still work. They'll take you to the existing pages, and those pages will be updated with the new documents in the coming days. And then on that, I just have a couple of slides left, and it's just changing the conversation to our premium model review project, which does link to the work that my team does. We undertake our annual premium filing, and I'm connecting that to our premium model review, which officially commenced this month, or the end of last month, actually. But since 2016, icare have submitted annual premium filings to CIRA in compliance with the MPPGs, and to date, CIRA hasn't rejected a premium filing. And the cycle allows us to make small adjustments, but it really is just that. It allows us to consider our rates in line with the valuation, make minor enhancements to the model where required, but appreciating that employers and the market need stability in the methodology and the framework that is set, and as do we, to monitor how that's performing. We haven't made any significant changes to that model in the last 10 years, just those small incremental enhancements. So that's where this project comes in. And I'm just going to move on to the final slide to give you a bit of an overview with what we've been doing over the last few months and what our intentions are over the coming next few periods of the project. So the project, we've gathered feedback over time. I'm sure many of you have voiced concerns and thoughts and feelings about the conventional premium model over time, and that's been teamed with ongoing performance monitoring, and our insights do show us that there's many opportunities to refine how the model responds to claims experience and to try and support a more consistent premium outcome for employers. So we've taken this to the board late last year, November, December. We've really put that forward to stress that a comprehensive review is required, and we did get executive engagement across November and December. We took it to the board, and we've had the business case approved. As of February, we underwent some in-depth discovery into the project, and it's now officially a thing. The structured review is there to ensure that we deliver fair, stable and sustainable premiums for employers, and it needs to be delivered in stages over the next 2 years. So we do need sufficient time to assess performance. We also have a significant phase of stakeholder engagement before we lead into that design phase. So you can see there on the timeline where we are now is at the start of that engagement. We have a project team working on reaching out to different key stakeholders within the industry and really gathering that industry experience and in-depth knowledge that we have within the industry on the conventional model and try and support us in making improvements to the way we price. We will also have a Have Your Say live in the coming weeks. I want to say in the next week or two. We're waiting for the reform Have Your Say to close, and then we will launch this. So whether you have a one-on-one interview with us, whether you want to take part in a group session, or whether you'd just rather put feedback in the Have Your Say, there's a few different options on how to get involved. Once that period closes in August, we will then share some insights in retrospect around the feedback that we received, and we'll enter that design phase, which we anticipate will take until August 27. Assuming that we have something to roll out, we'll be planning to implement that for the 28-29 premium year. So that's it from me. I'll leave that with you. for some thoughts and feelings, and you're welcome to reach out to icare representatives if you'd like to take part in the Premium Model Review project. They can support you with the Have Your Say link, or you may already be in contact with one of our team. I'm just going to pass back to Kristen for the final slide and a bit of a close.
Thank you so much, Emma and Karis, for that amazing information. So for any brokers on this call, please note the CPD information on this slide. Also, before we end, just a reminder that the recording to this webinar will be made available to attendees in approximately 2 weeks. It'll also be made available through the Mobile Engagement Team website, and the slide deck will be sent to registered attendees shortly. Please also visit the MET website for upcoming events and sessions, because we do have some great sessions in relation to premiums through June, and it can be a really useful resource for yourself. So please share those amongst your networks. That's pretty much us for today. The information will go out to you, and please get in contact with us if you do have any further follow-up questions. So thank you again all for your attendance at today's webinar.
Thanks, Kristen.